Just a reminder, you can catch me recording this podcast live on AMP. AMP is a new live radio app that lets you call in and chat with me in person while recording. Get the app on Apple's App Store and make sure you follow me at John Middlekauff to get notified when I go live. Okay, we're going a little mailbag here. Very easy to get in the mailbag. All you do is go to my direct messages on Instagram, at John Middlekauff. A lot of people over the years, Fresno State, Philadelphia Eagles, have only put one F. It's got two Fs, at John Middlekauff. Instagram DMs, wide open. Easiest way to get a hold of me. Start with my man. Do you think Tony Romo was a good quarterback? Heard Collins' take that he was a B quarterback and went on a stat-filled defense of Romo. I'm a lifelong Cowboys fan. All caps. Lifelong. I'm so old, I remember Dan Meredith and that young Navy guy, Roger Staubach. Romo is a nice guy, but he's not a quote-unquote good quarterback. He hurt his pinky on a non-throwing hand and sat out after he got a big payday. Staubach broke his finger on a helmet of a Washington Redskin and yanked some tape from a guy's thigh pad and has a crooked finger to this day. That's the difference between great and meh. Okay, if you're going to compare any Dallas Cowboy quarterback to Staubach or Aikman, yeah, I mean, we're going to have a hard time thinking the guy, was good enough, right? You're talking about guys winning chips, winning playoff games. But like, if you compare Jimmy Garoppolo to Steve Young and Joe Montana, he's going to look pretty shitty. But when, you're going winning playoff games with a guy, it's not so bad. So I think a lot like Dak Prescott, relative to all-time great quarterbacks, or even the rest of some of their contemporaries, he's not as good. But is Dak Prescott pretty good? Yes. Was Tony Romo pretty good? Yes. Both guys turned the ball over a lot. Tony Romo clearly a little more reckless with his body. Because I also was going to push back. It seems like you were insinuating that Romo was a little soft. Didn't he play a game with like a messed up spleen? Didn't he battle through injuries? I will say this about Tony Romo. When I think my time watching Romo, I think tough guy. I think a throwback. Now, do I think a guy that had some legendary letdowns, had some moments that left more to be desired? Of course. But the same is currently happening with Dak Prescott. And I think both are good quarterbacks. Or either Mahomes or either Joe Burrow. And Romo, think about some of his contemporaries, right? Peyton Manning, Rodgers, Brady, Roethlisberger. So yeah, he's not anywhere near as good as those guys. He's not going to be a Hall of Famer, right? But was he a damn good quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys? I feel pretty confident saying that. Is he Roger Staubach or Troy Aikman? No. Huge fan of the pod. I'm a big Eagles fan and wanted to ask what you think realistic expectation is for Jalen Carter in his rookie season. I think sometimes, and I'm guilty of this, that we kind of, our expectations get a little out of whack with rookie, especially on good teams, right? Jordan Davis is a good example, right? You got drafted last year, pretty high expectations. Then he gets banged up, and he's just, I wouldn't say he's out of sight, out of mind, but for a guy that was drafted really high, I would say he had somewhat of an underwhelming individual season. Now, as a team, as a defense, they were awesome. Obviously, you can't predict injuries, but they do have a direct need once they lose Hargrave to the 49ers with interior pass rushers. Fletcher Cox is nowhere near what he once was. So I think between him and Davis, now Davis has been in the league for a year now, I think if you can get a combined 8-9 sacks, I would say individually for Jalen Carter, if you get 5 sacks and just be active, I think that would be pretty awesome for them. I think he's going to be used early on. They're going to ease him into it, would be my guess. They're not just going to try to hit the ground running and make him some all-pro. I also think he's going to have to earn it. It's going to be This is a team that's pretty well established, a lot of veteran players at every position. I just don't think they're going to hand you shit. So he's going to have to earn it with his actions off the field, the way he acts, the way he operates leading up to games. Now, this is the NFL, just like when he played at Georgia. It's a production-based business, right? So if he's making plays, he's going to get to play. But I would say my expectations for him is just to be probably more of an impact player as the year goes along. I wouldn't just expect like defensive rookie of the year. I also think it's harder to be like a standout on a team with other really good players. Or in theory, you'd be like, he's going to have a big season. He's playing with how many sweet players. Kind of get lost in the shuffle a little bit. Maybe he's just that talented. We'll see. But my expectations would just be a lot of flash plays throughout the year. I could also see, maybe a little out of shape come like early October, and then they kind of whip him into gear, the older guys. I could see it being a little bit of an up and down year for him. But he's definitely going to have some plays where it's like, holy shit. Most rookies, I would say, I lean big, especially talented ones that are on talented teams. It feels like they usually come on year 2, year 3. Now, some guys hit the ground running and just dominate. Bosa, Myles Garrett, Khalil Mack as a rookie was pretty unreal. But the expectation, like they just got to play an unlimited amount of snaps. Hey, love the pod. You guys should consider talking about sports cards. People would love it. Yeah, I just don't know much about them. I don't really play that game. We just kind of talk about on this show what I like. It doesn't mean that everyone likes it. I probably leave some stuff out. Obviously, we don't do a huge fantasy football once the season starts on the show, but that's just not really my cup of tea. I just can be me. Though I'm always been fascinated ever since Gary Vee started hyping up those sports cards. Hey, John, love the work you've been doing. What are your expectations for Justin Fields and the Bears with their improved roster? I feel like they could be anywhere in the range of 7-10 to 11-6. If the Chicago Bears won 11-6 this year, I mean, Justin Fields might be a Pro Bowler. You said because of their easy schedule. I don't have their schedule up. I think my expectations for Justin Fields is to be a much more explosive passer. As we saw last year, his running ability was like shades of peak Lamar. It was pretty freaking incredible. Remember the one clip that kind of went viral of Mike McDaniels telling him to stop running because he was killing them. As a runner, Fields is every bit the athlete and every bit as instinctive and natural as anyone that watched him in his collegiate career, or you could just YouTube his high school highlights. To me, it's going to be like, can he have consistent, sustained 22 of 38? That's not even great, but 22 of 36. Trying that, he's not going to be, Justin Fields is not going to be a 66% passer. Can he be like low 60s, but throw for 300 yards, throw a couple touchdowns, and just kind of build on those back-to-back weeks? Because I think, and I've heard Michael Lombardi say this, they were the worst team in the league. Obviously, they drafted number 1 overall until they traded the pick. They averaged, I think, 22 pass attempts a game. They wouldn't let him throw. Now, you could argue that's because of their personnel around him. You add DJ Moore, in theory, Chase Claypool. Now, there have been some rumors coming out. Do they like him? Is he all in? Does he even like football? So there was a viral video today of him in France. He's like a male model or something. I would never do business with the Pittsburgh Steelers wanting to trade me a wide receiver. Like, wait, you guys are the best wide receiver drafting team in the league and you want to trade me one of them? I got a red flag. I don't see that. Look at the last couple. Claypool, that was a heist. They got the 33rd overall draft pick. Antonio Brown, remember how that thing went? I'm a diehard Hawks fan and used to being a small market, but no one is giving them their respect. They got Draymond Jones and Bobby Wagner this offseason to pair with another big rookie class with some college stars, not to mention Jamal Adams coming back healthy. Pretty big if Jamal Adams gets hurt a lot. Don't see how we don't improve and give the Niners a run for their money. We also have a lot to work for you in any facet, especially on your Go Low pod. Big golf guy. Oh, you want to work for me. Currently working toward a sports business degree. I like this guy. Get some, Joey. Good luck to you. I think I'm going to pick them to make the playoffs again. I do think it's fair to go. They got 30 touchdowns out of Geno Smith, and he was awesome. He was a Pro Bowl level player, comeback player of the year, easy to root for. Seemed just like a fantastic guy, right? They wrote him off, but he didn't write back. One of the best lines, I don't care, any industry in 2022 or 23. Yeah, it was 22. That was awesome. But is he going to do it again? So he's just going to throw 60 touchdowns in 2 years? It would be an all-time career resurrection. Now, you'd go, well, John, they got DK Metcalf, one of the best wide receivers in the league. They got Jackson Smith, who those players in Seattle OTAs are claiming like he's going to be a Hall of Famer. Tyler Lockett can still play. Kenneth Walker's a stud. They drafted Charbonnet, the running back from UCLA, who I'm pretty sure he started his career at the University of Michigan. He's a stud. So we know the two tackles they drafted 2 years ago should be better. I do think the Niners top to bottom are better. And, what I saw out of Purdy, like, what the hell's the difference? So the Niners team is just better. I mean, they swept them last year, 3-0. Now, when Russell was there, the Niners could not beat Seattle. It was very, very difficult. I think Russell's career record against the 49ers in his 9 years with the Seahawks was like, it was something stupid. I forget off the top of my head. Maybe it was like 17-3. He owned them. The ownage ended last year. So I'm going to pick the Niners to win the division, but I'm with you. Seattle's going to be good. I thought last year, I don't want to say it was fluky, but toward the end of the year, they were running out of steam a little bit. I think consistently they'll just be better. I think their team is better. I'm not counting on Jamal Adams. Like, what is Jamal Adams? A linebacker? Can't cover a soul. He gets injured a lot. To me, you don't even need him. Like, he went away and you guys were unfazed. I would say, can you be a top 5 run team in the league with those running backs? And then anytime you can run it like that, which they have in the past, the play action game with those wide receivers, maybe Geno does have another good year. But I would still pick them to be like a one and done playoff team, which if you tell me you traded Russell Wilson, got everything, and then you went to the playoffs back-to-back years, it's pretty impressive, man. What was a player that you scouted that you were really high on that wasn't what you thought, and a more underrated player that you were high on that was really good? Also, if you weren't let go from scouting in the NFL, would you still be doing it? I don't know. I would say probably not. But sometimes in life, I think there's a small percentage of people that aren't like athletes or singers or something. They're just so talented that it's like what I'm going to do. That just go, I'm going to be this. I'm going to do this. And I worked with some of those guys. Howie Roseman is one. It's like, I'm going to be an NFL GM over my dead body. I'm going to work in football. And I wasn't really like that. It's just one of those things that happened. So I've changed professions multiple times. And so I would doubt it. I really would. That I don't know if I'd be doing this. There's an element of luck that led me to the podcasting world. But I don't think I'd still be scouting. For my first couple of years, I was doing much more pro football. And when you do pro, I didn't like it as much. You're basically just sitting in the office 15 hours a day, just watching football players. But it's not like you're watching it on television like you and I do now on Sunday or Saturday. It's quiet. You're just watching the all 22 and you're just writing reports on guys in the league. And the character stuff, one thing I really enjoyed when I did college for a year and worked on the road was the character stuff and finding out about the guy. Once the guy's in the NFL, you're just writing him up as a player. You have all the character information. So is the guy playing well? Is he not playing well? Is he a free agent? Should we be interested? Is he a practice squad guy? Should we try to claim him? Spend a lot of time doing that. It's just very cut and dry. There's not much emotion behind it. Once you get to college, I wasn't a big Matt Barkley guy. Now, Chip and I argued about it because I said this guy could never play in Philadelphia. Well, he drafted him. And in fairness to Matt, I was wrong. He's still in the league. Pretty sure he's on the Bills right now. So he's had a decade-long career. I would have thought he would have made it in the NFL a couple of seasons. Now, there are guys that, Ziggy Ansahs or Deion Jordans or Star Lotulelei that you just think are going to be impact level players, that whether it be injuries, whether it be focus/character stuff, or whether it just be, the game kind of changed and it was much more of a pass heavy league and run stuffing defensive tackles aren't as valuable. So things change on you. But the year I did the West Coast, I was a big Robert Woods guy. And once he got with the Rams, he kind of proved that he was a really good player. But I think, talk to my buddies, once you do an area or college for a decade, you have a million of those. The majority of the guys that I watched when I was in the NFL were in the NFL. And you just I really like Ray Lewis, getting old, trending down. You're spending a lot of time doing stuff like that. What's your take on the Lions in Seattle trading away their franchise quarterbacks and thus, in my opinion, reinvigorating their franchises for the players and draft capital they received, especially for the Lions? Think this was the best move the Lions have made in the last decade, even though I still hate what the Lions did in the first round of the 23 draft. I disagree. I like the Lions draft. I think both teams fall under this category. If they would have had Baker Mayfield or some random quarterback, it probably would have looked ugly and we would not be positive on it. Where they both deserve credit is the Lions asked for Jared Goff in the trade. And Jared Goff last year was really good. And Seattle felt pretty good about having Geno on their roster and said, we can play and win with this guy. So part of the reason we look at those two teams as like trending in the right direction, making good moves, trading the quarterback, is because they had veteran quarterbacks that, let's face it, I thought Jared Goff sucked. I never would have thought in a million years Geno Smith could throw 30 touchdowns in a season for a playoff team. It is early 30s. So those teams deserve a lot of credit for scouting, whether it be, acquiring Goff or a guy on their team, believing in him, and then coaching the guy up and putting him in a position to have success. Because if you give a team a random, look at the Saints, look at their quarterback situation last year. You give some of these teams like Andy Dalton or Baker Mayfield, or I'm not trying to shit on Baker Mayfield, but he's your quarterback right now. You're going to lose. So that's a big, big reason is they had guys that they could plug in and immediately, I would say not just function, but have some success. Love the show. Listen all the time. Love your insight. Don't always agree, but that is what makes America great. Big freedom of speech guy here. So I really tired of hearing Colin and others saying that the Giants screwed themselves by signing Daniel Jones, and now they have to pay Barkley. I love Barkley as a player, but think that you can find a running back like him in the second or third in later rounds and not have to pay them. Totally agree. What are your thoughts on not having to pay Barkley? I just wouldn't do it. I'm just not doing it. I've said over and over that this has been a very lucrative deal for Saquon Barkley. He was drafted number 2 overall. He's made $38 million. Most running backs this year were making $5 or $6 million in free agency. They're almost paying him 11. So at the end of this year, he will have made $48 million over 6 seasons and average close to $8 million. I think it actually is $8 million a year. Kind of properly paid for what he's brought to the table. And did I love the Daniel Jones? I might have let them both hit free agency, right? Like, who's paying Daniel Jones? Who was I competing against? I think if Saquon Barkley had hit free agency, I just don't see who pays him. Not more than maybe, I would say the most $20 million. Remember Le'Veon Bell sat out a season, and since he said that's the worst decision of his life, even though everyone in the media and all the former players were saying, like, this guy is a trailblazer. Yeah, trailblazing his career right out of the league and losing $15 or $14 million on a second franchise tag. It's one of the stupidest business decisions in the history of America that was celebrated by these fucking morons with too many journalism degrees working at ESPN. But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. That's one of my one take that I do not regret having. Feel like I nailed that one. I would just say I would have let both these guys hit free agency and signed them both for cheaper deals. Now, maybe Joe Shane and Brian Daboll would say, we can't take that risk. And I go, I can hear you with Daniel Jones. I couldn't take the risk of letting him hit free agency and go, okay, see what you can get. And then someone does pay him. He is a quarterback. But I just don't see who would have paid Saquon Barkley. I really don't. So I would just play it on the franchise tag. Like I don't think Saquon Barkley. It's not like last year when DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, and Deebo Samuel all wanted to get paid. I ran into this guy at the gym today who said he was at Talking Stick, which is the anyone that's been to Scottsdale, it's the Indian casino right off the highway. He was playing craps, and he's like, you know who I was playing craps with? I don't think the guy quite knows what I do, even though I talked to him a decent amount. He's like, Deebo Samuel. You know who that is? I'm like, yeah, I've heard of him. I've heard of him. I was like, then I started picking his brain. What was he like? He's like, he was great. We had a great time. They played craps for a couple hours. So Debo's doing pretty well. I guess they had a guy who came in and was hot. And so a lot of people were making money. But those guys, remember, were, second round picks, especially AJ and DK, late second round picks. It was like, time to get paid. We've been Pro Bowlers. I'm sorry, Saquon, like you've been broken off. Same with Daniel Jones. Like he'd been paid a lot. So you can't risk not having a quarterback. You could definitely risk the running back situation. So I'm with you. You could find, even if you can't find Saquon Barkley, I could find 85% of his value in the third round. That's an objective fact. We see it all the time. And hell, even if you miss on the running back, you get an undrafted free agent that might be good. So I hear you. I would just pay Saquon Barkley the franchise tag. Like that's what we're going to play on. Now, I do expect the Giants to give him like some 3-year, $40 million, 30 guaranteed, which I just think is bad business. That's my prediction. Appreciate everyone listening. Adios.